Okay, in this video I'm going to show you how to replace the front brakes on a 2009 Hyundai Santa Fe. Fairly simple. What we're going to do first is we're going to disconnect this bolt right here, and then we're going to take the caliper and we're going to flip it up because the customer in this case does not want the rotors resurfaced, so we're just going to do what's called a pad slap. We're going to put new pads on it. So we're going to take out this bolt, flip the caliper up, and then we're going to push the pistons back in. Normally what I do with these is I get in here with a screwdriver and I put a screwdriver in here, and then I just pry it this direction here to recess the piston back into its bore. In this particular case there's no room for a screwdriver to go, so we have to use the tool to reposition the pistons back where they belong. So let me get started and I'll show you what to do step by step. Okay, obviously the first thing we're going to do is we're going to disconnect this bolt right here. And what we're going to do is we're going to take it out all the way. And then we just take the caliper and turn the caliper up. Give a little better perspective on it. And we're going to need to push these two pistons here back in. And the way we're going to do that is we have a tool like this that we push these pistons back into where they belong. So what we're going to do is we're going to grab the new brake pads. We're going to lay it in here. And then we're going to lay the other one in over here. Then we take these and you slide it right in between and you tighten it up. And what that does is it slowly pushes the pistons back into the bore. And you just turn it nice and easy. And then slowly you can see the pistons starting to push back in. And you do that until the pistons are recessed all the way back into the bore. Just takes a minute or so and it pushes in fairly easy. While we're pushing that back in, you want to make sure that your slide pins on the caliper right here, make sure that they slide nice and freely, because if not, then your brakes are going to stay applied and you're going to have a problem. So, and in this case here, both of them slide fairly easy. And then we'll finish pushing that piston back in. You can do it with the, I like this tool here, seems to work the best for me. Some guys use a C-clamp. I don't really care for it, but this works the best because you can push two pistons back in at the same time. All right, and once you turn them in all the way, you can tell when you're in all the way because obviously it'll stop moving. Then you loosen it up and you remove the tool, and then you take your brake pads out, and then we're going to remove the brake pads from off the rotor. And they usually come out pretty easy, but you can always just get a little pry with a screwdriver and it comes right out. Same thing on this side here. Sticks, hit it, it comes right out. Now, I want to mention to you, this piece here is a disc indicator. When this piece, when this piece comes down to where it's even with the brake pad, that's when you get that squealing noise. So, right, so that's the indicator. When that comes in contact with the rotor, that's what gives you the squealing noise. Now we have to put the brake pads back in the same position that you took them out. So we know that the outer pad did not have any sensor on it, so we can grab the outer pad. All right. The inner brake pad has the indicator. The inner brake pad has the indicator and you want to make sure you get the brake pad that has the indicator in the right position. As you can see, this one is the mirror image of it. It actually belongs on the other side. So let's grab the right one and I'll show you how that. Right? See? Both of them have the sensor on top. So we're going to, in this particular case, we're also going to change. We're going to change the hardware too. When you buy a premium brake pad, they usually come with the new mount, the caliper hardware. You want to try to use it whenever you can, because this gets a little bit of rust inside here, and the brake pad is not going to slide as it's supposed to. So you just took it off like this. You lift it up and out. Obviously, you put the new one back in the same way you just took out the other one. And you'll push it in until it is seated back where it belongs. Do the same thing on top. You just pry it down a little bit. Comes right out. You get your replacement and you put it back in the same way you took it out. Right? This is facing up, so we know that this has to face up as well. Take it, you push it up inside here. And you'll feel it lock in where it's supposed to, because they have these little tabs on the inside here. When you push it up, you'll feel it lock right up inside there. So again, it goes like this. You push it up in place, and then you push this part here up, and you'll feel it lock in. All right. So now we have the tabs in there. As we know, whenever you replace brake pads, most of the time they give you a little lube to put on here to make everything slide. Obviously, you put it on the contact points that fit into that. All right, and you put this in here. The easiest way I find to do it is, instead of pushing it in perfectly flat, just put it in a little bit of an angle, and it just pushes right in there, and you'll slide right in. Same thing on the back brake pad too. We're going to put some grease on the back brake pad, a little bit right here and right there. And then we take the brake pad and you put it back in the way you took it out. Obviously, you know, make sure you watch how you take it out, because it's only going one way. You don't want to try to put it in this way here, because it's just not going to happen. All right? Put it back in the way you took it out. Remember, slight angle. And when you have that slight angle on it, you push it in and you'll feel it lock right into where it belongs. Next thing we're going to do is we're going to take these slide pins and we're going to pull them out. And the reason we're going to do that is because we're going to lube them up a little bit too, so that they slide the way they're supposed to without binding, because if they bind, you're going to prematurely wear out the brakes. All right, so that's nice. And on the upper one, we didn't take that bolt out, so what we're going to do is we're just going to turn the caliper and just turn it and have slight pressure pulling it out at the same time. And then you put some grease on this pin here. Then you put the caliper pin back in up on the top. Slide your caliper down nice and gently. You push in on this bottom slider. You take your 14mm bolt. You screw it back in. You grab your 14mm socket and you tighten it up. Doesn't have to go real tight, just snug. Now, if you're trying to turn this and the whole thing is turning and it does not get tight, then you need to get a wrench, and you put a wrench on here and you hold it so that it doesn't rotate. You just put a socket, whichever size it is. I'm sorry, you put a wrench and you hold it like this, and then you put your socket back on and you can tighten it up all the way. Doesn't happen all the time, but sometimes it does, where you'll be trying to tighten this up and it just keeps on spinning. So you just hold it with a wrench and you tighten the bolt up. Alright, so we have the top is greased, the bottom is greased, the bolt is tight. This one we never loosened up, so that's tight. The shims are in place, the hardware kit for the caliper, for the brake pads are in place, and that's it. Caliper slides nice and freely, as it's supposed to, and that's it. We're all done. Now we're going to go around the other side, and we're going to do the exact same thing on the other side, and that's it. Show you how to replace the rear brakes on a 2009 Hyundai Santa Fe. In this particular case, the customer does not want the rotors resurfaced, so we're just going to basically be removing the brake pads and replacing them with a new. I'm going to show you how to do that step by step. Fairly easy. What you do is you grab a screwdriver, and then what you're going to do is you're going to get into the back right over here, and you're going to put the screwdriver blade in so that it actually comes through on that side right there. I don't know if you can see that, but it comes right through there. And then you just keep slight pressure on it, and you'll see it slowly starts to push the piston back in, and the caliper slides out, the piston pushes in. And you do that until the piston pushes all the way in. Make sure your caliper slides back and forth. And I'll show you. I'll put it down for a second. Okay. And what you do is once you pry the caliper over as far as you can, you just make sure the caliper slides back and forth as it's supposed to, because it's supposed to slide back and forth easily. If it doesn't, then you know you have to change your caliper, obviously. Then you put your screwdriver in your brake pad, and you just pry the brake pad back into the caliper. In this case here is actually rusted pretty solid in there, the pad. So we're just going to push the pad back, and I'll show you what I mean about being rusted. Alright, then you make sure you push the pad all the way in to recess the piston into the bore. Right? Once you do that, you take your ratchet, and it's a 14 millimeter. We're going to remove this bolt right here. And once you crack it loose, you can just unscrew it by hand. Take it out. Now in this case, we're not changing the rotors, so you can just flip it up like this and pull your brake pad out. Same thing on this side here. Remember what I was telling you about it being rusty? This pad is rusted here also. So we're just going to pry it just a little bit with the screwdriver to get it out. And now I'm going to show you what to do, and just so you see this too. These are right down to the what's called the disc indicator. This little piece right on the side right here, when it comes in contact with the rotor, it starts to squeal, and it almost touched into it, but it didn't quite. Let me grab the new pads, and I'm going to show you what to do so that the brake pads don't bind up on here. We're going to grease these up real good, and we'll put the pads back together. So let me grab the pads, and I'll come right back. Okay, now after you get your brake pads out, you just push your caliper up and out of the way. I wanted to show you something too, just in case you can't push that piston back in. They make a tool that you can use to push the pistons back in, and I'll show you how that works in just a second. Want to make sure that your slide pins here slide just the way they're supposed to. They need to slide freely. Same thing on the upper one, it has to slide nice and freely. And then we're going to grease up the brake pads. Most brakes, when they come in today, they come with a little packet of silicone grease that you would apply here, where the four corners of the brakes touch, and then we'll pull this pin out here and we'll grease it up a little bit there too. So let me put this camera down, and I'll show you first how to push that piston back in with the tool, and the next thing is how to put these brake pads in. All right? And then what you do is you just take your new pads and you push them in here like this, and you put this one in here like this, and then you would take your tool and you would slide it in here. And once you have it in there, then you just turn it, and as you're turning it, it pushes the piston all the way in. But in this case it doesn't matter because the piston is already pushed in all the way. But that's how you would push the piston back in. Right, but if you do it with the screwdriver like I showed you, you'll see it'll be a lot easier doing it that way. Alright, so we take the brake pads, and now what we're going to do is you're going to make sure you put the brake pads exactly as they came off. Alright, now the back brake pad we took off has the sensor up on top, so we're going to make sure we put the brake pad in the same way with that sensor like this. Alright? What we're going to do, and we talked about the grease, we just grease up the brake pad here a little bit so it slides nice and easy. Same thing on this side right here. And you take your brake pad and you put it into your housing here where it slides right in like that. Same thing, you take your outer brake pad, and in this case here the outer brake pad does not have the sensor on it, only the inner one had the sensor. So we take our new brake pad, put that grease on there and on here, and then we take the brake pad and you put it into the caliper mounting knuckle, and you push it in all the way. Make sure you're underneath these clips, that you're not bending them, and you push it in all the way, and that's it. What I normally do too is take out the slide pins and take some grease and just put a little grease on it. Keeps everything lubricated and sliding as it's supposed to be. And we're going to do the same thing on the upper mount, except this one here we didn't unbolt it. So what we're going to do is just disconnect it like this, put a little bit of grease on there, and then we just slide it back in and just slide it back and forth, and you'll put it right back into the bore. Right? And you push your brake pad, put your caliper down over your pads, push this in very little, bring your bolt back in here that you previously took out, and you screw it in as far as you can by hand. And then we just tighten it up. It doesn't have to be real tight, just snug it in there, but just a tiny bit more. Alright, and that's it. So let me just recap what we did here. We put the brake pads back in here where they belong. We tightened up the bolt right here, and that's it. It's all set. Alright, so we're going to go around now to the other side, and we're going to repeat this process on the other side too. Alright, good luck, and I'll see you on the next one.